and Attendant Pension Program is a program that's been around for many, many years with the United States Department of Veterans that provides a non-service connected disability. There are two types of veterans benefits. One that's related to a disability as a veteran during a wartime period, and the other part of the spectrum is it's a non-service connected disability. It is an improved pension benefit or assistance for aid and attendance care for a veteran and their spouse, or a widow of a wartime veteran that will reimburse them if their income is insufficient to pay for their medical management expenses, up to, for a veteran and spouse, $1,950 a month, for a veteran, $1,645 a month, and for a surviving spouse of a veteran, $1,057 a month. The veteran must have served 90 days on active duty and at least 1 day during a wartime period, and must have been discharged under conditions other than dishonorable. Additionally, the veteran must be permanently and totally disabled through the disability need not be service-connected. And the wartime periods are World War I, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam era, and some Gulf War areas. What do we mean by permanently and totally disabled? Means that they must require care or assistance on a regular basis to meet the hazards of their daily living. The term can be established by the veteran being blind, as a visual impairment in a nursing home, needing assisted living, hospice care, mental or physical incapacity, unable to dress themselves or undress or keep themselves clean and presentable, needs adjustments to any prosthetics, and it's really a very, very, very broad spectrum. And it's presumed that if a veteran who's residing in assisted living does meet one or more of these requirements. And if you're over 65, you're presumed to be disabled. There is a net worth requirement and an income requirement. Assuming a veteran and his or her spouse has tentatively qualified for this benefit because of the permanently and totally disabled, then there's a net worth requirement. The net requirement does not include the applicant's home or an automobile or their personal property, and these are non-countable assets. But the veterans' benefits, and there's really no hard and fast rules. You'll see in all types of literature through the VA that a veteran and spouse can have $80,000 and the exempt assets, and or a veteran without a spouse can have something close to that. But there's really no hard and fixed rules. They look at tables for life expectancy, how much assets you have, as well as what your expenses are going to be. There's an unwritten asset limit that I believe that maintains that a single veteran should have about $40,000 in assets, and a married couple could have no more than $80,000. I've never been denied a veteran's application when there's $39,900 in assets. But I have seen an attorney that helped a family and be denied when they were younger at $19,000 in assets. So that's why it's very, very important for someone to work with a person who is an expert in this field. As far as the income requirement is, if their income is in excess of their medical expenses, they don't qualify. The veterans benefit has no look-back period whatsoever. It's what's in your wallet at the time that you apply. So if you give assets away, it's a wonderful veterans program, but a horrible Medicaid program. And a lot of people out there are going around into assisted living facilities that are professing to be these wonderful organizations and helping families qualify for this benefit, and they're not looking at the consequences as, am I going to have to cash out IRAs and pay income taxes, and is my break-even point, I'm getting $1,000 a month, I'm paying $30,000 in taxes. Am I going to be still there in 30 months? Medicaid says if you give a gift and you want to reverse that gift, you've got to put penny per penny back. So if they give the money to a family member and they invest it and it goes down, they're responsible for the loss. So what these companies are doing, it says to the families, go buy an annuity. And once they buy that annuity, then they're locking their money up with a surrender charge. If they're under 59.5, there's a penalty through the Internal Revenue Service. So these organizations, which I'm not going to name, are not doing a good service to the public out there. And in fact, the Veterans Association in Michigan and the legislature is looking at legislation and bulletins to send around to the residential care facility, of which I wrote one, and it's on our website. And with respect to, since there's no look back in the veterans, there's no need to buy a financial product whatsoever. You can give a gift to your kids, and the kids are now, it's legally their money. Morally, it should be for the parent. And they could spend it. They could have a car accident. So what we typically tell them to put it into an irrevocable trust so the money's still there if it's needed for their parent later in life. Well, it's for allowable medical expenses, which can include health insurance premiums paid by the beneficiary or members of the household. And it's really anything that is a regular monthly expense, not a one-time medical expense. The cost of over-the-counter medicines can be taken at the doctor's direction, monthly prescription costs, mechanical and electronic devices, the cost of adult daycare, group home, assisted living, long-term care, in-home attendance, home care. So these are just some examples of, it's a tremendous benefit that nobody knows, and 1/3 of our population out there is probably entitled to it. It typically takes somewhere between, and I'm going to give a broad range, 6 months to a year to get the benefit, but it goes retroactive to the date that you file the application. Though I've recently seen an application go through in 12 weeks. So it's just a matter of, the squeaky wheel getting the grease and staying persistent. To do pre-planning, you really should go to a qualified elder law attorney who's been accredited by the United States Department of Veterans, because there's been so much misadvice that in January of last year, the veterans said, okay, we have to have a program to make sure that our veterans are being educated correctly and taken care of. So they've now made professionals have to be accredited to work with the veterans. Now that still means I can't fill out an application because it's against the law for a person to charge to actually fill out the application. But what we do is we charge for the pre-planning process, which is really no more than estate planning and guiding them through the process and explaining the Medicaid consequences and looking at a complete proactive long-term care plan. Since the Veterans Administration only looks at the applicant's net worth at the time of the actual application, and there's no penalty period for transfer of assets, it's fair to conclude that with a proper planning, just about anybody can qualify for the benefit. The problem is that there's so much misinformation out there that's not proper planning. And particularly, I know, I can name, which I won't, 100 different assisted living facilities that are using organizations to educate their membership, thinking that they're doing a wonderful, wonderful job in doing this. But the bottom line is that they're not helping them because they're being taken advantage in their families. So I can't stress enough that you really need to look at the consequences of doing this planning. There's been several cases in the past month where families have come to me. Number one, their medical expenses didn't exceed their income, and they were told to do this benefit. Number two, they had large IRAs and annuities that they had to surrender and cash out, and if mom was not going to be in assisted living for another 58 months, it didn't make sense to do this benefit. So there are things out there that you can't just look at blinders like a lot of people do. You got to look at the whole spectrum. Center for Elder Law can be, we have a phone number, it's 248-641-7070. Easier, 248-641-PLAN, as well as we have a website, the www.thecenterforelderlaw.com, and there we have articles about the veterans benefits. We have a newsletter that we send out once a month or more, educating families about this benefit and all the law changes that relate to elder law and Medicaid. In fact, the last month's article was on this veterans benefit and the beware, and this is what the benefit's all about.